Norfolk Southern, Val Valley, Sutton Branch, Defect detector milepost 10.5. Online. Detector out.
So this time I've got a lot to review here. I kept thinking I didn't have much, and I was letting some of the projects I got done pile up. I didn't realize I had this much that I had gotten done since my last layout update. So first we're going to look here at Pearson Yard. I don't expect anybody to pick up what was done. I had a problem here with my track. Originally, to get into the power plant lead here, locomotives would have to come down the main yard lead here. They would come across here, and instead of this diamond there was another number 4 switch here, and then they wander in to get the power or the coal. And the problem was you had 2 number 4 switches back to back in short order, well 3 if you count this one, and 6 axle units weren't doing very well. So what we did is we tore that all up. We put in a number 6 switch here and 2 diamonds. Made it a sweeping curve. Now we lost about 3 cars that we could have stored here on the regular tracks, but now the 6 axle units can meander in and get coal real nicely. But with any fix also comes a problem. The distance here between these frogs, being plastic frogs, non-powered, on both of these is so close that some of my 4 axles stall. So before we had trouble getting the 6 axles in, now we can get them in. Now we're having a little trouble with 4 axles. We'll take a quick look at some still pictures of what the yard looked like before and after the track change. Okay, I also have another track alignment project that's going to be coming up here in this area. I'm going to replace this kink. It doesn't look that bad, but the 611, she doesn't like going through it too much, and I kind of need that runaround. So we're going to replace a couple switches and redo that, but that's going to be an upcoming update. So now we're going to go over and look at Wilson, the town of Wilson, which is up here on the top level. I completed this unique kit. This was a ironworks, and a friend of mine named Don Wilson, which the town of Wilson is named after, donated this kit to the railroad. I think it came out pretty good. I was real happy with the stonework. I tried a couple experiments and it came out real good. For the stonework I used a spray paint they call Fleck. You can get it in grays, browns, and tans. And it kind of, sometimes it looks like concrete. This is the gray that I first painted the rock with. And then after I had a coat of that on, I went and painted some of the individual stones, either brown color or dark gray. I weathered the doors and the roof normally. And we have the office building here. And a pretty cool little storage building. And as I'll pan back here and we can watch it a little bit. But the lights here in the warehouse stay on the porch, and the lights over in the walk bridge there, the lights inside stay on all the time, and so do the lights underneath it. Eventually there'll be scenery under there, and so you'll be able to see. But the lights inside the main building here are connected to my other little Arduinos, and different room lights go on and off as the Arduinos cycle through. Oh wow, they all went on, almost. Alright, moving up the line a little bit, we got some really cool things here that we call handbrakes. I've had a problem with this. If I pan way back, maybe the camera will show it, maybe not. You'll notice the shelf that Wilson sits on, it doesn't really show, but it is bowed. Partially because I bought a board, knowingly that it had a slight bow to it, because I knew I needed a bit of a grade for my main line, and I thought that would kind of help out. Well, it did, but it also created a situation where cars parked on either one of these sidings would tend to roll. They wouldn't stay put. So for a while I was derailing the first car in the line to get them to stay put, and that got to be a pain. And I thought about it for a long time. I was thinking about using alligator clips, electrical ones, to clamp on the rail to hold the cars in place as handbrakes. They didn't like to stay put. The cars sometimes just pushed them right out of the way. So what we came up with are these really cool little brakes. We'll look at track number 2. The main line doesn't have one, but this is track 2, and you can see the orange marks. That tells us where the brake will come up. And this is number 2, and this is the handle. So when I push the handle down, oh sure, there it goes. It pops up. There's the brake. And when I let go, it falls down. Now the idea is, when a locomotive comes up and bumps the car, the brake falls down right out of the way, and they can couple up. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to keep these or not. I've been using them. They seem to work okay. Although if you hit the layout real hard sometimes, the brake will fall and the cars will roll away on you. Kind of like this. See how that works? Very inconvenient. And the other thing I have a problem with is when you're switching, you've got to be real careful when you put up the brake, like so, that the couplers are centered over that spot. Otherwise, suddenly your car rises into the air. Okay, at the beginning of this update, you heard a Valve Valley detector go off.
Norfolk Southern, Valve Valley, Sutton Branch, Defect detector milepost, 10.5. Online. Detector out.
And that's what we're looking at here. Actually, we're looking at the sensor for it. I haven't done any scenery around it yet, other than put a cabinet there. This is a defect detector. We used to call them dragging equipment detectors back in the time frame I'm modeling. All this is a solar cell hooked to an Arduino. And it has a voice synthesizer on it, and when the train rolls over it, it counts how many cars go over it, and then it picks out whether it's going to be a defect or not. And I've got it set to lean more trains get by without having a defect, but it does have 6 different defects that it can detect, or that it says it can detect. It does do its best to count cars. Due to lighting, once in a while it doesn't always get the axles quite right. But it's a work in progress. We'll go take a look at the Arduinos themselves. Okay, excuse my wiring mess. This is my prototype. It's an Arduino with an EMIC text-to-speech synthesizer. The speech synthesizer I used was kind of expensive. There are cheaper ones out I want to play with and see if I can do a better job. But like I said, this was kind of proof of concept. Okay, we're back at the detector now. Like I said, this is kind of the prototype. I have some things I want to do to make it better, some things I thought of and hadn't tried yet. So I'm still working to improve it. We'll keep you informed updates. A note though, I do plan on making a version of this that I'm thinking about selling. So if you're interested in one of these detectors, let me know so that I can continue to develop it beyond what my layout needs are, and we should have some fun with that.
Norfolk Southern, Valve Valley, Sutton Branch, Defect detector milepost, 10.5. Total car count, 17. Total axle count, 68. No defect. detector out. Norfolk Southern, Val Valley, Sutton Branch, defect detector milepost, 10.5. Defect. 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 Defective head and car number 11. Defective axle number 2. North rail. Defect type, flat spot.
And now the train crew will key up after they get their train brought to a safe stop and notifying the dispatcher. They can key up the mic again and bring back the defect report.
Defect report. Total car count, 17. Total axle count, 68. Defective head and car number 1. Defective axle number 3. North rail. Defect type, hot journal bearing.
Okay, a big chunk of our update for this month is going to be about motive power. I had a bunch of new locomotives that we got. Well, not a bunch, but a couple. And this one is not really that new. It's an older locomotive that has finally been rebuilt, and it's kind of a neat story behind this. I bought it off eBay, like a lot of my stuff. I kind of bought it at scrap value. I never expected it to become much. It was listed as being sold as scrap because it made a terrible whining noise. I was really tickled when the rebuild was done because she came out really nice. I wish all my rebuilds came out this night. I have some blue boxes rebuilds that I'll show you that didn't fare out as well as this Atlas did. Actually, I'm really happy the way this came out. So let's take a look at the locomotives that I've been working on, and we'll start with this Jeep 38. Not a bad runner for a locomotive that was sold as scrap. Okay, next up we're looking at an Atherin Blue Box Jeep 40-2. I weathered it. 2 is a rebuild. This one came out pretty good. Let's see if we can wake them up here. Now the Jeep 40-2 has power in it and sound. The Union Pacific 840B also is powered but does not have sound. But these two have been assigned as running mates. They're both new to the railroad. There's not old power that has been rebuilt. They're just newly acquired and then rebuilt. So let's take a look at them in performance and see how they turned out. Alright, we're looking at the motor pool for the Valve Valley. In the center row we have two Jeep 40X locomotives, 7001, 7002. 7001 is wearing Norfolk Southern colors, and the Southern is obvious. The second 7002 is wearing Southern colors. One is weathered a little heavier than the other. So let's take a good look at these. Now, I had a lot of fun weathering these, especially because they're sister units. The 7001 was painted Norfolk Southern sooner than 7002, and it is slightly used and dirty. It hasn't gotten terribly dirty yet. Whereas the Southern unit has been around a while and she's managed to collect a fair amount of dirt. They're pretty cool runners. Let's take a look at some footage I recorded earlier of the two units out running around on the layout. Alright, the 7092 and the 7093 were a pair of blue blocks Jeeps that I got from a friend. They showed up and wanted to sell them to me, and I thought I'd buy them, why not? The price was right. Got myself into a whole heap of work here. These were total rebuilds. But they turned out pretty cool. I weathered them pretty good. They don't show, the weathering doesn't show up on camera for some reason as good as it could. But let's see if we can wakey them. But they are blue box units. You saw them in action earlier, running over the detector. But we can take another quick look at some other footage I shot of these earlier. Here we have a set of blue blocks units, Atherans, doing the blue blocks grind. We're back looking at the layout now. We've covered just about everything I planned to in the video. I got a bit done. I still have tons of plans coming. One of the things that I'm going to be hopefully having in the next video will be DCC track detection with signals that I'm working on, again with Arduinos. I may have the 611 completely restored by then. I have a Spectrum 611 that I bought quite a while ago that's been giving me troubles. I think I've got her almost fixed. Been working on that a lot, so we'll have an update about that. And like I said, I have plans for the run around here at the top of the yard. I want to rebuild that so there isn't a kink in the track to make it more fluid with the switches. But I got to purchase some track. I've also been getting an itch at building one of the coal mines up here for Sutton. Way in the back here, just above those lights, is a coal mine supposed to be. And a coal tipple about where the word Sutton is here on the upper level. But I've been getting an itch to build one of those, so I should get into them. But here at the end of the video, we always show trains in motion, but we're going to do things a little different this time. You already got to see a bunch of trains in motion, the new locomotives that have been added to the layout or rebuilt. You've already seen those in the video. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about skeletons in our basement. Not our closet, but our basement. I have a skeleton lurking in my basement, and my daughter keeps telling me that I should go down and pay more attention to it. So I'm wondering, what skeletons do you have in your basement or your closet? Leave that in the comment. But first, let's go see what I'm talking about when I talk about skeletons in my basement. So let's run down and see what we have down there. Okay, we're now on my back porch. A little hard to see. Collection of railroad pictures. But it's important because for the last 10 years, before I got back into HO, which was about a year and a half ago, this was my domain. Okay, you have to excuse the mess. The wife is storing her outdoor plants for the winter on the basement stairs. And I will apologize for the mess down here. I haven't been down here to do anything real in about a year and a half. Which means there's going to be some surprises for both you and me and the skeletons in my basement. What we're looking at is a G-scale layout that is kind of dormant for the moment. And look at that, Christmas toys to be packaged and opened tomorrow. Good thing the little one didn't come down with me. And of course, they hide this stuff where us big people can't get through. Anyway, this, as I said, was a G-scale model railroad. I spent 10 years building. That's the roundhouse. I can't run it for you because the DCC control system that ran this is now upstairs on my HO. What's unique about this railroad, other than we should probably reach over here and turn the lights on, so let's go over here and get that. Alright, we got the lights on. We'll come back here and look at the roundhouse again. It's hard to see. The roundhouse is lit up inside. We'll take a closer look here. The layout you're looking at represents a real railroad that existed. It's now defunct, the Dunkirk, Allegheny Valley and Pittsburgh Railroad. Take a quick look in the roundhouse while I'm talking here. You see the engine slumbering away. What a shame, huh? There's 3 steamers in there and a rail bus. But the Dunkirk, Allegheny Valley and Pittsburgh Railroad was a 90-mile short line that started here in Dunkirk, New York and ran all the way to Titusville. I miled pieces of a 30-mile segment between here, Dunkirk, and Faulkner, New York. I should get down here and clean this up. This is what my New Year's resolution is supposed to be, that my daughter keeps telling me that my big trains miss me. Somehow at some point I got disenchanted with them. And I think it was the fact that building a kit, I don't buy kits, I build the buildings from scratch. And they take me anywhere between a month or 2 to build. Some of these are just wood shells or foam board shells with an exterior put on them. And a couple of them are built as if you would frame a real house. We'll take a look at one of those in a minute. As we take a quick look around. Boy, there's cobwebs and dirt everywhere. What a shame. This is one of those buildings that was built, it's framed like you would frame a real building. I don't know how good we can see inside. There's boxes and crates in there. Let's try the other angle here. Yeah, well, can't quite see much. And some of the lights don't work down here. This was a coal temple. Most of the railroad actually resembled real places along the railroad. I'll show you some of that in a minute. This coal temple started as an idea. It was the first structure I built on the layout, and it just got a little out of control. But it is really magnificent. Wow. It's hard to believe that's like 10 years old now. And it's still standing. This was Dunkirk Yard. And I see we have plenty of residents like this around. And here you can see Shay number 5, right where she was last parked. Should get the DCC down here and try running that, clean up the tracks. Just seems like I always have something better to do. Going back to the roundhouse, I'll show you a little bit more of the layout, but as I said, this was a real railroad that once stood, so you can see the roundhouse, and I will show you the picture. Along the edge of the layout I had these pictures on hinges, but there's the actual roundhouse that it was modeled after, that was probably 4 blocks from my home. That's one reason I modeled this, was it was something I could walk out and research, and I could touch some of the artifacts and landmarks that were still there. It is a double-deckered layout, which until this point I really haven't shown you, but we'll come back around when we see where it is. But look at the length of that 6-foot bridge, and it supports a 20-pound train, and it's been there for a long time. So we'll follow the railroad real quick. We don't want to be forever on this. This is Dunkirk, New York. This was AK Tower, and let's see if we get the tower to light up still. Oh yeah. If you watch in there, I push there, the panel is starting to light up. It simulates trains going through different blocks on the CTC panel in the tower. For a while I really had a lot of fun with G-Scale. You have to excuse the mess. Remember, I haven't been down here much in the last 2 years. Look at that, piles of track waiting for a project that never happened. We got a porthole. And we're going to follow it along. Here is bridge number 1. Now domained by the spiders. Here is Pearson's farm. You'll notice, remember, I have Pearson's yard upstairs. I have Pearson's farm down here. Pearson was the last name of my grandparents who raised me when my parents passed away. So I was ever indebted to my grandparents. And I like to remember people. There's a lot of things on the railroad like that here. And this was Pearson's Run. This was a good scene before it got too dark with all the animals and ducks. See, my grandpa loved farming and he loved ducks, so Grandma and Grandpa were remembered here. Birds and trees. Here's a coal dealer that never really got finished. This house in the background, Melissa's Bed and Breakfast, another scratch-built building. That's for my oldest daughter, Melissa. Arndt's Radio, for a friend of mine named Paula Arndt's, so she's represented. This is a model representation of an actual factory. Used to be named Red Wing up in Fredonia. And we're now coming into the town of Fredonia, New York. This would have been Route 20. Here's Elsie's Donut Shop that was made for my wife. That was a nice building. That was a lot of fun building. Here's the Fredonia passenger station and freight station. We'll look at them in turn. This building took a long time to build. I'm going to I don't know how good I can do this. Stick the camera on the front. I can't see what it's seeing. Hopefully you can see it. But it's a pretty cool building. A lot of time and effort I put into these. Now, let me move the snowplow out of the way. We'll take a look at it in a minute. But if you look at the building, and again, because it's a real railroad building, here is a picture and the original, or the actual station it was modeled after. I put hinges on my picture frames so that we could easily look at them, because the aisles here are so narrow. They're not very big. This is a scratch-built snowplow that I built. Moving on, we have our freight house. We'll take a look, and I'll bet you there's a lot of cobwebs in there. But this is the Fredonia Freight House. It's about half the length of what the real one was. I can't believe the lights in there still work. I wonder if the door opens and closes still. Look at that. And this is not a dry basement either. I'm going to put the train back and, well, let's do it this way. There's the depot, and there's the picture of the original, which this building is actually still standing today. It's one of the very few buildings from the DAV that's still standing. And we'll put the car back. Well, we're going to cruise on out towards Leona. We follow the layout past the furnace room. Now we're getting into Leona. Check out these grapes. That took forever. I don't know if they're showing up, but there's actual grapes on my vines. I don't know if I could do that in each. Oh, I see one grape cluster broke off. And some vines came off. I got a little garden. I've got a junk car. I even made beehives. My grandpa was a beekeeper, so he's got bees on his farm. This is the Leona station. Unfortunately, the picture for Leona, well, that disappeared. That had an accident years ago. Now we're getting into what we call Lintville. This is my wife's dryer, which has junk all over it, but it's still part of the main line. To get proper grade level, this is kind of cool. There. The main line just tips up. There's little locks I would put in place. Here's one, and then you could lock this like that, and there's one on the other side. But that makes the main line. We're starting our climb now to the second level. And this is Norton's, which was a real town. Station doesn't look like it. That station had trouble, so I think it all warped and twisted, so I made it look like a closed station. We'll cruise on a little bit farther. Here's the original bridge that would have been down in Leona, but due to spaces I put it and the Casadega Bridge together. This would be the Casadega Bridge. These are all scratch built, by the way. And if you had any guesses, it's the DAV&P Railroad. Got some birds up here saying hi. Some hand-painted seagulls that I did. Man, I got time with all this. Here we have yet another bridge in the cluster, and evidence of cats that we have upstairs. Cat was here. Alright, we're entering Casadega. This building is pretty cool. This is a regular store that you might see in any hometown USA. It's actually named for Roger Sullenberg, a very good friend of mine who was very high in the Historical Society here. And you can see the attic, the bathroom, the kitchen. Still needs a sink. This would be the sales area for the building. Warehouse. And it's hard to see the dark, dingy basement, but there's a coal furnace and some supplies that never really got finished. And there's a tools cabinet you can hardly see way in the back there. Okay, moving along. We are in Casadega and got some automobiles. The A.J. Moore Company in the background, that's for my son, Anthony Moore. In the back here we have Dickey and Sons. Best friend that I grew up with in school, Kevin Dickey, had a brother, or still has a brother, and his dad, so we have Dickey and Sons. This is the Casadega station, and I don't see a photo handy of it, which we never got placed, but it's real close to the original station. It's a nice thing with G-scale, you put the back towards the layout and you can really have it, the details. I spent a long time building this building. It's one of the few buildings that has complete windows in it, people, benches. Now to make it worse, it's really hard to see because one of the lights in the back is out. But I scratch built the shelves. There's a safe next to the guy in there, or on the back wall here. There's the safe next to the bench. There's telegraph stuff on the desk. Let me see if I can get a flashlight working here. Yeah, now it's so bright we can hardly see. But you can see the shelves. There's the scales next to the guy. Way over on the operator's desk you can see a telegraph, a roll type desk, a filing cabinet, the scratch built safe, and a bench that's been moved in. Okay, we'll take kind of an aerial view of that. It's hard to see in the back. There's a scratch built water tower for Casadega. Remember I said that this was a railroad that was built Well, there was a real railroad that mimicked it. And right there is the actual copy of the Cassadaga track plan from, I think they were 1909 track plans or something like that, that I got from the Historical Society on it. It was very helpful when I was building the layout. This building didn't exist. This is my helper shed. It's scratch built, and as you can see, it's still housing engine number 9. We always needed a helper to get up that big hill if we had more than 4 cars. And it has a smoke collector above where the locomotive sits. Got a bird in rafters. Always had bird in rafters. There's Seagull. The doors on this, I wonder if they're still open or if they've swelled to the point where they won't open anymore. Can't get my phone. Oh, look at that. 2.5 years and they haven't been opened. That's pretty cool. Here, cruising on. Here's one of the things that this layout was really big for. I built all my switch stands by hand. Now they're remote manually. Manual remotes would be the right name. This is the lock for the switch. This is switch number 2. Right now it's in the lock position. You flip it over. Now you can throw it. When I push this rod in, it'll throw the switch, but watch what happens. Look at that. The targets rotate around and the rails went over. So let's watch that again. I'll pull it. Ah. Look at that, it came apart. Haha. Alright, a little adjustment. It's been sitting for a year and a half, so surprisingly it came apart. Not very surprised. You can see how it works. Over, back. You put the lock in and that holds it in the normal position. Carrying on, there's a house I made for my youngest daughter, Stephanie. One of the last buildings I built. Cruising on, now we're getting into St. Clairville. There's a warehouse. And it's neat because this was modeled as part of the Borden Milk Factory. In St. Clairville there was a real Borden's Milk Factory. And the labels on the back of the wall actually came from that factory. And so did the crates that they had. And we got a guy here who's just looking really upset that he's got to work today. Other things of note, there's a time card rack, a time card, and in the office are a bunch of different magazines and flyers, and there are some things from the local area. Let's see here. Somewhere there's a bus schedule in here. I don't see it offhand. The fair symbols from the Chautauqua County Fair, which is local to my area. Here's the other Borden building, which sits the other side of the tracks, entertaining some gondolas. Now this is the St. Clairville station we're coming up on. And again we got more of my switches here. That one still works real good. A year and a half. And they're made out of wood and coat hangers. Haha. And the other one here on the far side, see if that one works. Oh, look at that, it does. Ain't that something? Now, a neat thing about this station, I actually met a gentleman who worked in this station for a couple of years, James Peters. And lo and behold, a long story short, the railroad let him live in his trailer on the property because the town of St. Clairville at the time didn't have phones. So it was really easy for them to get a hold of the station agent if they needed him. So he actually stayed in that trailer, stuck in the back. And the plans I got to build the station came from Mr. Peters, which is real hard to see, but this is him and his dad. And here's a picture, a copy of the picture he drew. It was much larger. I scanned it and scaled it down. And this is his actual station, and that's the front of the station. And a little write-up on him. So there's a little bit of history recorded with it. Oh boy, more grapes. I will never make another grapevine line like that again. That was a real pain. This is one of my favorite scenes. Unfortunately, we stole the light for upstairs. But we got some fishermen and some nice shale going on, bridge supports. Got some cool pictures of trains on this bridge. It's an interesting bridge. You can see down through it if you can get past the spider webs. Now we'll move through the retainer wall. This bridge didn't exist on the railroad, but I always wanted to build one, and that spot looked right for a bridge. So we'll go back on following the upper level through the paint can alley tracks duct back into the furnace room. Oh, we gotta get this down because if I leave it up, the wife will kill me. So we unlock, kick the brace, and the main line is out of. Anyway, this is where our upper deck came out. This would be the town of Gary, which didn't get very far. You can see there's a station with no siding or anything put on it, just a box. A large tree, what would have been a cemetery and a church. Here's that massive bridge we saw earlier over the roundhouse. It too, where is the name of the railroad? See how many people actually recognize the junk got piled here. It doesn't really belong here, but the Waltons. It's pretty close to their house if you remember the Waltons series. Got a leaning overhead bridge. In Faulkner, the DAV connected with 2 other railroads, so we represented it with this tower that was cut in half to make room. And this is probably my very first G-scale building that I ever made. This one is also completely framed like you would a regular building, and then for drywall or wallpaper I used index cards. Here's a complete office. It's hard to see. Tools on the bench, ticket office, phone, passengers waiting. This building was made for a friend of mine, Eugene King, who has long since passed on, but remembered. The last 2 bridges, we call them the twins. And now we're entering the fake end of the layout. None of this existed on the real railroad, but running point to point, you got to have a place to turn your engines around. And I had a lot of fun starting this. This is the sand dryer. The sand was kept up here after it was dried, so the gravity feed would feed it to the locomotive. In the back you can see a green boiler, that burnt coal which was stored here in the bin. This is the water bin, or water tank. This one side is a steam, it's a 2-cylinder, but at one side's a steam engine, the other side's the air compressor to force the sand from our original sand bin, draws it in. This is the dryer. That's another water tank, probably the evaporation tank. Here's another coal tipple I built. It's pretty big. This is kind of cool. I wonder if it still works. But if you pull it down, the weights go up. And then if you pull this string, yep, the chute door opens. Ha! Who'd have thunk? I've been sitting here all this time, it still works. Similar with this water tank, not as nice as the one in Casadega, but supposedly this is supposed to stay up, but I can see it got knocked down when the cats got down here once and smashed. The rebuild didn't go as well as it could have. We got a wheel crane, and I love this little shanty. Another one of my buildings. Here you can see one of my framing jobs on the inside. And we've had 2 turntables in this spot. This one's a manual one, just on a Lazy Susan that allows it to spin. And an engine shed, we have 1 engine up here. And we have that crane that I built from scratch. Let me get that truck out of the way. It's worth looking at. Engine number 4. The prettiest engine on the layout. I don't know where this came from, but it's here. It's not the right scale. But here's my, many years ago on a Christmas. And tomorrow's Christmas from when I'm filming this, so it's kind of appropriate to talk about this crane. I wanted a crane in G-scale, but they're like 150 bucks. Didn't have the money. So I sat down and I built me one over the Christmas break. And what's really cool is how the back opens. The doors open and close. But there's actually a boiler in there. It's all scratch built from wood and wires and stuff. Even the car, I had the trucks, but I built both the flat car with the cranes on and the other. So this is the skeleton in my basement. Show me in the comments below, post a picture or a link to the skeletons in your basement or closet. Alright, that'll do it. Thank you for hanging out with the Val Valley Update number 7 and an extended look at my skeleton, the DAV&P G-Scale Model Railroad.